everyone, it's Angela from Cake Angel, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this really cute fondant cookie. So let's get going. We're going to start with the cutter just to show you the shape that I've used, and we're going to be using that to help cut our fondant. This is going to be a cookie that's decorated entirely in fondant. So the first thing we're going to do is put some shortening on our board. This is to prevent the fondant from sticking to it as we're rolling it out. Just makes it a lot easier to work with. And then I'm kneading up the fondant in my hand to warm it up, and it also helps to make it a little bit more elastic, which is great when you're trying to roll it out and you want it to be nice and smooth. You'll notice I'm using a rolling pin with guide rings. That's to make sure that my fondant is nice and even and level when we're working with it. And then I'm using the cutter to cut out the shape as the base for our cookie. So we don't need the bottom of this one, as only the top half is going to be grey. So I'm just going to cut that off. I'm going to tap down the edges from the cut, and then we're going to fix it to our cookie. You'll notice I'm not using any glue for this at all, as I'm just going to use the base of my hand to smooth it. This is a perfect smoother, and I find it gives you a much better feel when you're working with fondant if you use your hands rather than using a tool. So just work your way around the cookie. This is actually going to help it adhere to the edges as well and give that really nice clean finish to your cookie. And that's done. I'm just going to quickly wipe my hands. So then I'm going to redefine that line. This is actually going to be a different colour. And the next thing I'm going to do is just use a Dresden tool and tidy up that cut as well. We just want to make that really sharp. And you'll see I don't have too many other tools that I'm using for this process either. So the next thing I'm going to do is start to add details to this cookie. So we're making a bear, so we're going to start by just giving some definition to the ears. I'm going to use the end of the Dresden tool just to redefine that as well, creating almost like a little crater that we'll be filling with another colour, just to give him a cute whimsical look as well. Perfect. Now I'm not putting a lot of pressure on the fondant when I'm doing this. You'll find when you try this that it actually defines it really easily too. And if you make a mistake, you can always just smooth over it again with your fingers. So let's add some white to it. So same process, anytime I'm working with fondant, I always give it a knead up in my hands first to warm it through. Makes it a lot easier to work with. And then I'm rolling out again with my rolling pin with guide rings. Now I'm just going to cut a shape using my cutting wheel tool. And this is going to be for the nose portion of the bear. And then I'm just softening up those edges with my finger, and that's kind of roughly where it's going to go on there. And it's always good when you're working with fondant because you can place things there, you can check the size, you can see if you're happy with it, or you can roll it up again and start again. Now this small piece is going to be for the ears, so it's just the little inserts that we made. And again I'm sizing it up, and I'm going to define it with my Dresden tool just to push it into that little shape that we made earlier. That's looking great, so let's do the second one. Now fondant does stick really well to itself as well. Again, we're not using any glue when we're doing this. We will use glue at the later stage of the cookie, but when you're just laying fondant on fondant, you tend to not need glue. Now I'm just redefining the line at the bottom of the ear area, just to help with the character of the face. The next thing I'm going to do is start to outline the features. So this is just to outline the actual face. And then I'm smoothing it over with my finger. The space on the right is going to be where we're going to add some fondant details. So this is the little arm area, and I'm just defining that with the Dresden again. And now I'm going to apply the nose area, and straight away you can see our character starts to get a recognizable face. So I'm just going to tap it into place, smooth it a little bit. And I just want to tidy up that bottom edge so that it sits nicely on the cookie. We want it to replicate the shape of the face that we've just actually scribed in with our Dresden tool. And then I'm going to use my Dresden again just to tidy that up. So next thing I'm going to do is add some stitching to the bear. So I'm using that thin end of the Dresden tool to do that, just to cause those indentations. And then I'm just poking 2 eyes with my modelling tools. First with the modelling stick, just to get that nice round shape, and then I'm accentuating it with my Dresden tool again. You'll notice I'm a huge fan of using a Dresden tool with fondant. It's very versatile, a great addition to your kit if you don't already have one. Next we're going to make the nose. Now this is a blue-nosed bear. So I'm just going to take a piece of fondant and then shape it, size it up, make sure I'm happy with it. I think that looks cute. And we don't want to pat it down too much because we do want it to be slightly raised off of his face. Next we're going to add a little patch of blue fabric. So I'm just cutting a shape. There's no cutters needed for this. You're just going to cut a nice random size. Flatten down those edges as well, and then we're just going to pop it onto the grey fondant, tap it down, and then using our Dresden tool again, we're just going to give the impression of stitching. And all I'm doing is just dragging that through the fondant and then smoothing it a little bit with my fingers. Isn't that cute? We're going to do 2 little eyebrows, again using the back of the Dresden tool to score them in. And the next thing we're going to do is add his eyeballs. Now you could leave them as holes if you wanted to, but I think when you add a little bit of black fondant, it just takes it to the next level, makes a big difference to the cookie. So what you do have to do though is roll them very small. So I always suggest you roll a ball and cut that in half so that you've got an even size of fondant for each one. You really don't want him to have one eye bigger than the other. And that's the easiest way to work this out. And just keep going until you get the right size. Okay, so let's put them in place. This is going to be a little fiddly, so you need a bit of patience when you do this. You want to pop it into place. You'll see it sticks to my finger a little bit as well. So I'm just using my modelling tool to help guide those into the right place, and then tapping them down with my Dresden tool as well. And that looks great. Doesn't he look cute? The next thing we're going to do is fill that space on the right hand side, and I'm going to show you how to make some ribbon roses with fondant. Now I should mention as well that we're using a marshmallow fondant for this entire cookie, and I'm going to pop the recipe link at the top for you so you can have a go at making this yourself. It is so much better than store-bought fondant. Now ribbon roses are a really nice and quick flower that you can add with fondant. And all we're going to do is make a long strip of fondant. You see that I'm straightening off the edges. I'm going to cut the sides as well. And then a nice trick is that we're just going to fold it in half, but notice that I'm not completely folding it, as in I'm leaving it slightly curved so that we get a raised edge to it. And then you simply roll it up and cut a piece. Roll and cut. And keep going until you run out of fondant. This is super, super easy, and it just gives a nice whimsical impression of roses. And it's so much quicker than making more realistic ones too, but I think this really fits in with the character of the cookie. Okay, perfect. So then I just gave them a little bit of a smooth down just to straighten up those edges. You'll notice I always roll up my fondant when I finish with it as well. That just helps to stop it from drying out. And this is where we're going to add the base of our cookie next. We're just going to let those roses sit to one side. So the bottom of the cookie is going to be white. I'm using my guide rings again for this because I want it to be the same thickness as the grey. And then I'm going to use my cutter to help me cut that shape. So this wasn't quite big enough, so I'm going to roll it up again. My fondant's drying out a little bit too. So I'm just going to knead some shortening into it and then re-knead it so that it gets a little bit more elastic. And let's roll that out again. Okay, that's perfect this time, so let's go ahead and cut our shape. And then we're just going to use our spatula to cut the bottom off. And then as we did with the grey, we're just going to pick it up, tap down those edges to make them nice and straight, and then position it on the cookie. And then we're just going to use our hands to smooth everything down. You want to smooth it so that it looks as though the grey and the white are melting into each other. You don't want to have any obvious gaps between them. And there we go, that's done, nice and easy. And the next thing we're going to do is position our roses. So now I am going to use my edible glue. You do need something more than just the stickiness of the fondant to apply details like this to a cookie. And even if you were doing this on a cake, I would also recommend you use edible glue here. So I'm going to pop the recipe for that at the top so you can see how easy it is to make. It takes no time at all. So I just popped a little bit of glue on the cookie and then position the roses in place. Now I'm giving them a little bit of a press down, and that's all you need to do. They will stick and they will dry fully and hold in place really nicely. So the next thing we need to do is write on our cookie. Now the cookie has actually dried for 24 hours so that my fondant is fully dry. And the quick way to do this when you're doing any writing on a cookie is to cut a piece of paper that matches the shape that you're needing to write on so that you can test it and see if it looks right. You can use projectors for this as well, but I like to use this method so I can actually lay it on it and see what it will look like. So now I know exactly where my letters need to go. So it's taking out that guesswork when you're writing, and you know that you're not going to run out of space when you do it this way. And then I'm just going ahead with my edible marker and writing on the cookie. Perfect. Such an easy technique and no projectors needed either. And there you go, there's our bear cookie finished. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Don't forget to let me know in the comments below what you think of him, if you've got a name for him, as that would be pretty cute too. And make sure you subscribe to my channel as well so you can see all the other videos that we have coming up for you. Thanks for watching and have a great day.